Well, with me now to talk about what we know so far about the president's government daycare plan and the problems associated with it is Kelsey Bolar. She is a senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum. Kelsey, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So, universal child care, good thing, bad thing?
When we say universal child care, we have to remember that means government child care. That means taxpayer-funded child care. And the research, the evidence to support taxpayers funding universal daycare is very thin. Actually, the Biden administration, in touting this new proposal, was citing a study from back in, I believe, the 1970s or 1980s, and it had a very small sample size. You can read more about that at IWF. We covered it. And the reason is there are no definitive studies that say early education, universal daycares are beneficial to children. In fact, the research suggests the opposite. This is tough for some parents to hear. I have a 1.5-year-old myself and had to adjust my career based on the evidence I was absorbing about early childhood development. But the truth of the matter is that the number one thing that children need at these early ages is a loving mom, the support of their parents. And what the Biden administration and really all of the left wants to do is push moms to give everything they have to the workforce and then pawn off their children to these government-run daycare facilities. The Biden proposal doesn't go so far as to put us in the position of fully funded government-run daycares for everyone, but certainly it is a very clear step in that direction. And it does so at the cost of punishing moms who decide to stay home or moms who decide to have an alternative childcare arrangement like I have for myself, where I have a nanny at home. So I'm essentially being punished for prioritizing my child. And then those who want to send their children to government-funded daycare get these massive, massive subsidies to do that. And the sad thing is, children don't win from this. Children win when women and working moms have flexible work arrangements that enable them to decide for themselves what type of childcare arrangements work for them and their families. And that's why it's important that we as conservatives don't just say no to this proposal, but we point out that we do have solutions that do offer flexibility and choice for working parents. And these most often come in the form of tax credits for parents, so that I as a parent get a tax credit that I can use to fund the childcare arrangement that makes sense for my child and my family.
Well said, Kelsey, but the evidence, I shouldn't say but, well said, period. The evidence would suggest that during the Trump administration, that flexibility you made reference to appeared to be at work because more women joined the workforce during the Trump years as a result of the tax cuts and the economic growth that we saw.
Absolutely. So another issue that's being raised here by the Biden administration is the fact that we've had over 1.5 million working moms drop out of the workforce since the pandemic hit. And so what does the Biden administration propose to do about this? Well, these massive, massive jobs programs and this massive overhaul of early education. When, I know the mainstream media didn't report on this much because they couldn't give the Trump administration credit for anything. But believe it or not, in 2019, we actually had more women on payroll in the US workforce than men. So women were excelling across the board. Their wages were rising, particularly for those on the bottom quarter of the income spectrum. And companies across the board were offering greater benefits, including maternity leave and sick leave and paid family leave, so that they could compete for good employees, because the economy was doing so well. They realized, we have to get with the times and start offering good benefits if we're going to attract good employees. And so the free market was working. Women were employed and they were getting more benefits. And now what does the Biden administration propose to do? Not go back to our pro-growth agenda of tax cuts and deregulations. He wants to double down on all these regulations that make it so hard to run a business, to be an employee, and for women to stay in the workforce because they lack that ability to have a flexible work schedule, because Biden wants everybody, every woman and every man in America, to have a 9-to-5 union job, which we know, especially for working moms, is not what women want.
Well, and that's not for the benefit of the family. That's for the benefit of them collecting more taxes to pay for the government programs that they say they're giving you. But there's a problem that I think the Biden administration is going to face on this, Kelsey. And the headwinds are the fact that you mentioned the 1.5 million moms that dropped out of the workforce that were there at home with their kids during the public school lockdowns. Many of them discovered for the first time what their kids are being indoctrinated with. And as a result, they don't want any part of this. And if you think about what's happening in our public school system, do you really want to send your toddlers there for early age indoctrination?
You are absolutely right about that. This pandemic has been a huge wake-up call for parents and specifically mothers who are not okay with the indoctrination that's happening in government-run public schools. I used to just call them public schools. I can't anymore because there's so much indoctrination. We need to call them what they are, which is government schools. And this is so unfortunate. I'm a product of public schools. I am proud of that. But I am now looking at these institutions and saying there's no way that I can send my daughter there. I can't trust them, whether it comes to the physical safety, the lowering of the academic standards, or the racial ideology that they are peddling through the classroom. And so that's part of the reason that we've seen so many working moms drop out of the workforce, because they don't trust public education to teach their kids basic math, reading, and science. They are homeschooling or pursuing different types of choice options. And this isn't just going to end when the pandemic ends. We're going to see parents doubling down on school choice, which is why school choice legislation is more important now than ever. That has to happen at the state level. But what Biden is proposing to do would bring us in the complete opposite direction. More government-run schools and less choice for parents and their families. You
mentioned choice, Kelsey, and when Joe Biden, Kamala Harris say that, they're speaking for these working moms out there and they want to give them what they want, early childhood education, universal daycare, community college, 2 years free of that. Is it not choice to make the decisions for themselves and what's best for their children? Isn't that what parents really want?
It is. But the left seems to think that we know better than you. We know better than parents what your children need. Send them to these government-run daycares, these government-run schools, these government-run colleges, and they'll be fine. Don't worry about it. When really, any good parent wants to be involved in their child's education. And we know that a one-size-fits-all education does not work for the vast majority of children. That is not always a criticism of public schools. That simply means different children have different needs, and different types of schools exist to serve those needs. But what parents need are more tax credits, are the ability to send their kids to private schools, because often these can come at a great expense. Of course, we know wealthy parents are already practicing school choice. So in essence, when the left denies parents school choice, they are only denying lower income families school choice, because the wealthy ones have already gotten out of there and they will continue to do so.
Yeah, there's no one that has the interest of their children at heart more than parents themselves. Now, I know there's some outliers, but I trust parents to make decisions that are in the best interest of their kids more than I do the government. Without any hesitation, I can make that statement. Kelsey, we're almost out of time, but I want to ask you one final question. All right, what do parents need to be doing?
First off, they need to be fighting back at the local level, pushing back on these woke ideologies that are entering their classrooms. And look, if they're not having success there, they do need to consider alternative options, whether that means sending their kid to a private school, taking a step back from their career and homeschooling. Of course, this is not the message that anyone wants. Women, again, we're doing so well under the Trump administration. If we get our economy back, if we go back to the Trump administration policies of pro-growth agendas, women will have more flexible options. But if we pursue this massive spending package that Biden is proposing, I know it sounds great on its face. We women are struggling. I'm a working mom. I get it. It's hard to afford everything we want to provide for our children, but there are better ways the government can help parents and empower, and that means empowering them through tax credits so that parents have more choice and flexibility when it comes to choosing their own types of childcare arrangements and education.
Kelsey, I think you're absolutely right, and we're going to encourage parents to do the same. Kelsey Bolar, thanks so much for being with us. Great to talk with you today.
Thank you.